How's it going there, YouTube? Well, it's a week before Cookstown Steam Show here, and trying to get some stuff ready to go, but my two big tracks are apart. Of course, the 80, I attempted to put the back tire on there on the weekend, but the tire is already stretched, and trying to put it on a narrow rim like that, it was no dice to get that split ring in there, so I'm going to take the rim off the tractor and do it on the floor so we can get some gravity to help us. But that's not the subject of this video. I'm going to work on the 1828 tonight because we have a minor issue, but nothing too major. But I do have the carburetor off it because it seemed like it's not getting any gas up to the cylinders. But when I attempted to start it there on the weekend, I was getting a little bit of white smoke out of the exhaust, but it wouldn't fire. So what I'm thinking what was going on, I had this problem for a little while, when you'd go to start it on, especially on a hot day, you would go to choke it to start it. This is the drain on the carb, of course. It would leak gas out of the bushing in here, so it would flood up. This tractor's always flooded as long as I can remember. It always used to do that, especially on a hot day. But it seemed to be a lot better more recently. So what I think was going on is that the float in the carburetor is getting saturated, meaning it would, when you turn the gas on, it would soak the gas up, and then it would sink to the bottom of the carb bowl, thus closing the needle off and not letting fuel up into the cylinders. It would flood up and drip out. So I've got it apart here on the bench, and the needle looked fine. Had that apart, and it wasn't stuck or anything. Actually, I was kind of nervous about doing this because I had never been inside this carburetor. Of course, I'd never been inside that 80 carb either, but that was actually quite straightforward. So it was, yeah, just a couple of screws and a bolt to hold the float in, and everything came apart pretty easily inside the carb bowl there. But what I've discovered so far, this is just a pail of water here. I don't know if I can zoom you guys in or not, but those are bubbles on the float, at least on that side anyway. It is floating, but to me it doesn't seem like it's floating very well. So I think our float's getting some saturation in it, and the solution I have for this stuff is right over here on the bench. I'm going to try this first before I buy new floats, because I won't get them in time. I was given a tip by a friend of mine that you take and dip your floats in POR15 gas tank sealer. So I'm going to attempt this first. Now these floats, I was actually surprised. I was doing some looking online, and I was told by a couple of guys on one of the Facebook pages, I thought these were a cork float. They are in fact a wood float. So naturally, I believe wood is porous as it is. So what they used to do in the old days, used to use shellac on the floats. And that used to work with the old gas, but with ethanol gas nowadays, you cannot use shellac on your carb floats, or else you'll just have the same problem relatively quickly. So we're going to try this POR15, and hopefully that works. I think they're going to be all right, but it seems like, I think it's just because I can't get a good grip on the rod, but it seems like it's floating. You know, it wants to float, but it doesn't float very well, so that should almost be right up at the top there, I think. So we're going to dip these floats, and we're going to, hopefully that works for us. So this is the flathead screw, it takes those off of there. Haven't fully decided to take them off, and I think I'm going to take them off and try to dunk them with a piece of wire. But we'll get on that tomorrow night probably, because I got to let this dry out naturally. And I'll let you guys know how it works out.